Well, folks, turns out my next guest is one of the architects of that prosperity boom that Madison just showed you under President Trump. Joining me now, founder, chairman of Laffer Associates, Art Laffer. Art, of course, you know, I got to begin with this huge story. Apparently, you are one of 3 economic advisors being considered for Fed chair should Trump win. Your thoughts on that?
Yikes. Yikes. No, thank you. It's very flattering. But let me just tell you that President Trump, when he is elected, that he'll take office in January of 2025. Then he'll have to wait a year and a half before the Fed chairmanship comes up to make an appointment. By that time, I will be a little bit older than Methuselah. I will be 9,386 years old. And I think that's probably a little too old to be the Fed chairman. But I was flattered that my name was mentioned. It's really nice. If they'd have done it 20 years ago, woohoo! But now, what can I say? That doesn't make any sense whatsoever. But thank you very much for the nice stories and the lovely things. My grandchildren and my great-grandchildren love the stories, Charles. So it's very nice, very flattering. But no, that's not going to happen.
They should love the story. You know, I got goosebumps just thinking about it, Art. It's fantastic stuff, man.
I did too. I did too.
Yeah. Are there any names that stand out to you? I know you have a lot of friends, and you may not want to offend anyone, but any names standing out to you?
Well, yeah, there are tons of names that stand out to me, but again, remember, it's 2.5 years from now before Trump will be able to do that appointment. Not quite, 2.25 years from now. So there are a lot of changes that are going to take place there, and there'd just be idle speculation. But Kevin Warsh, Kevin Hassett are great names right now. John Taylor, what a wonderful person he is there. I mean, Larry Kudlow, who knows? Larry could well be the person there. Steve Forbes, fantastic. Steve would be a great Fed chairman. There are all these wonderful people who could be in the running, in the mix. Waller is one of the Fed members now, and he's also pretty good. Right. So, you know, we have a long way to go before any decisions, but isn't it fun talking about them? It
really, really is.
Isn't it fun whispering the names this way and there? Hey, did you hear about this one? He might be that guy. You know, that's what's so wonderful about politics. If you don't enjoy it, it'll kill you. It'll just make you crazy. But when you get into these rumor mills and this stuff, it really gets exciting and fun and thrilling. So I'm glad they're doing those types of stories.
Let's talk about something that's not too far away, and that's the next Fed meeting. Okay. Now, if you were on the FOMC right now, would you be looking to cut rates sometime soon?
You know, I wouldn't be cutting rates at all, to be honest. I'd let markets drive rates, I wouldn't drive them. You know, as I've talked about lots of times, the Fed should be controlling its balance sheet and only its balance sheet, and it should be shrinking its balance sheet steadily, stably. I mean, stabilizing short-term wiggles and bobbles and stuff like that. But bottom line is they should get their balance sheet way, way, way down to where they don't make the markets. And the Fed making the markets is the antithesis of what Paul Volcker did. Alan Greenspan, it's antithesis of what McChesney Martin did. These were all great Fed chairmen who controlled it by, you know, following the markets, not leading them. And leading the markets when you're not well educated doesn't make much sense. And this Fed is not, I mean, well, I should go further, but goodness.
All right, let me just, you know, one thing you kind of talked about, you know, the role of the Fed and you know, vis-a-vis the markets. You know, out today, Senators Warren and Sanders openly pressuring the Federal Reserve to cut rates. My concern is that there's going to be an administration one day that does push this Fed to become extraordinarily political. And the ideology I'm concerned about are things like ESG and those sort of things. They've already got too much on their plate to begin with. I mean, what do you make when you have senators out there telling the Fed what to do 2 days before a meeting?
It's crazy. Well, it's not crazy. Of course they do that. They're political. And that's what they want the Fed to be. And they want the Fed to reignite and push their political agenda, which is not the right thing to do. You know, prior to the U.S. government getting involved in the money supply and money, before 1913 and the setup of the Fed, prices had been stable for almost 2 centuries. The government did not control the quantity of money. Now, they did define a dollar as 1/20th of an ounce of gold. They did define a dollar as 1 ounce of silver. That's That's what they did. They also minted coins, Charles, but everyone else minted coins too. The money supply were all bank notes. They weren't Federal Reserve. They weren't dollar bill notes. They were all bank notes. And it was a private banking system that kept price stability. Since they took it over, price level has gone up 30-fold. And look at what they've done now. The dollar is collapsing everywhere against goods and services. It's collapsing against gold. And it's just a classic. When the government gets their hands on a product, they lose it. They ruin its quality. They ruin its availability. And this is exactly what they're doing right now. It's a tragic shame.
All right, I got 30 seconds. Let me slip this in because President Trump used the word bloodbath over the weekend. The media completely just took it and used it for something else that was really awful. And the main point he was trying to make, and I think we need to pay attention to, is China is trying to get around all these sort of barriers by moving a lot of manufacturing and production or assembly to Mexico. And, you know, he's concerned that they're going to flood our markets. Already today, BYD just lowered their, another Chinese auto EV maker lowered their prices, that they're going to have these cheap EVs. They're going to flood America and put American automobile makers out of business. I mean, isn't that a legitimate concern?
Well, it is a legitimate concern, and I watched this whole speech carefully. When he only referred to bloodbath with regard to imports of automobiles and in that industry, and you're right, they misinterpreted. Every other station did, and I watched them a lot too to see what they say. And you know, it's just incorrect. But yeah, if you know what Trump is talking about is having a level playing field in trade, and that's what he'd like to have, and that makes perfect sense to me. I thought he did a great job when he was president on trade. I thought he was pro-free trade, and he wanted good deals done with other countries to get free trade. He had the North American agreement there, which was darn good. South Korea. I mean, all of these things he did when he was in, I thought were really good, and I thought they were pro-free trade, pro-business, and pro-America all the way, and I couldn't be more happy with him than I was.
Yeah, you know, you ask any American, we're all for fair and free trade, right? We want it to be fair. We don't want to be dumb about this because we have been in the past.
Except in nuclear weapons.
Okay.
I don't want to sell foreigners nuclear weapons. I draw my line there.
All right, that's a whole different topic.
Thank you, Charles.
Once again, congratulations. You deserve the accolades, my man. You really do.